Senator Clinton, last month you voted for a bill in the Senate that calls for the construction of 700 miles of fencing or walls along the Mexican-U.S. border. Harry Reid, the leader of the Senate Democrats, opposed the bill saying, and I quote, "We can build the tallest fence in the world and it won't fix our broken immigration system." Do you really believe this fence is necessary?
I support comprehensive immigration reform that is consistent with the rule of law, our immigrant heritage, and American values. As part of that, we do need to secure our border. And I have consistently said we need more border patrols, we need to utilize technology, and we do, in places along the border, need some kind of smart fencing and even a physical barrier. But if that's all we do, we're not going to deal with this problem. And that's why what I've supported is, in addition to trying to secure our borders, both south and north, we need to crack down on employers who exploit undocumented workers. We need to help local communities that are left with costs that they have no reason to have to pay themselves for law enforcement, health care, and education. And we've got to be honest with the fact that we have 12 million undocumented workers in our country. And they are contributing to our economy. They're doing work every single day. I want to get them out of the shadows. I want to be able to figure out who these people are, because that's part of the threat that we face. We don't know who they are. And then I think they should have an earned path to legal status, where they have to learn English, where they have to pay fines, and where they have to wait in line behind people who came here legally.
Thank you, Senator Clinton.
But really quick, Senator Clinton, if you are for a comprehensive immigration reform, why voting for a bill that calls just for the fence? Why not say no to this and trying to get some other comprehensive bill, including all that you're talking about?
Well, we did. We passed that in the Senate. It did include a fence in the comprehensive bill. The Republican majority wants to play politics with this issue, not resolve it, but to keep it, as a political football. So this is a part of what I do believe needs to be done, so I voted for it. But I'm hoping when I go back to the Senate after November 7th, we'll have a Democratic majority and we can get back to common sense immigration reform.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Spencer, you have a 30-second rebuttal if you want to
just a slight rebuttal, because interesting enough, we don't disagree too much on that issue. But to say that the Republicans again, here we go again, not my fault, someone else's fault, Republicans are holding it up, that's not the truth. What the Republicans were holding up is the same thing I would hold up. That until you secure the border, there can't be no comprehensive reform. Secure the border first. There's not a lot of trust there that the border is going to be secured. If you attempted to do a comprehensive immigration reform, minus closing the valve, if you will, and securing the border, then you're just wasting your time. That's why the Republicans are holding up. Secure the border, do comprehensive immigration reform, which I support.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. And now we go to my colleague, Brian Taft.
Thank you, Dominic. Mr. Spencer, Senator Clinton, good evening to you. We talked tonight about Iraq, and I'd like to talk to you first, Senator, about another so-called hotspot in the world, North Korea, right now. You have criticized President Bush's handling of the situation in North Korea, saying it's, quote, no carrots, no sticks, meaning toothless, we suppose. Using that same metaphor, then, what so-called stick would you propose using against North Korea if they decide to move forward with their program or decide to move forward with another test, even though they promised to China today that they would not do that?
You know, North Korea is a destabilizing force, not only in the region but in the world. Its pursuit of nuclear weapons poses a danger to us, because the missiles that they are testing have a range that could reach Hawaii at least, and maybe the west coast of the United States. So I have been, for several years now, questioning administration officials who appeared before the Armed Services Committee, trying to understand what the strategy was. The strategy, to me, looked as though for the last 4 or 5 years, we have outsourced it to China. I disagreed with that strategy. I thought we needed to be much more forceful. So basically, I think we have to do 3 things. Yes, we now have sanctions, not as tough as I would want them, but we did get sanctions out of the UN, and we need to enforce them. Secondly, if we're going to have the 6-party talks, let's get back to them, and let's try to figure out how China will continue to put pressure on North Korea. But in addition, I think we've made a mistake not having a bilateral engagement with North Korea. This administration doesn't like to talk to people they disagree with, and I think that's a misjudgment. We talked all during the Cold War of the Soviet Union. They had thousands of missiles pointed at us. I believe we need to be engaged with North Korea, and I would hope that we'll make progress on this front, but we can't take any option off the table. I think that North Korea not only is a danger with its own weapons, but it will sell anything because it has no means of producing anything other than weapons. And so I would take no option off the table, but I would pursue vigorously those three areas.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit further about that in just a moment, but since you mentioned the six-party talks, Mr. Spencer, in a conversation with me last week, you said that you support the six-party talks as a road to some resolution there. But we've already seen the six-party talks fail once insofar as Kim Jong-il did not pay attention to them and pulled out. So can we look at the six-party talks as a realistic solution when we've already seen this party, North Korea, treat them as though they didn't matter at all?
Okay, Brian, I'll get to that real quick. But let me again point out, as Senator Clinton answered that question, how she handled it when the situation was unfolding about a week ago, when North Korea was learned that they were doing some underground nuclear testing, and she was asked, what's going on? Her immediate response was, it's all George Bush's fault. And if they followed my husband's plan, we wouldn't be in this situation. I think that's a bad response from a United States Senator. It would have been more in line with the response she gave tonight, now that she's on a debate in front of the whole state. And the point of that is that kudos to Senator John McCain for stepping up then and saying, wait a second, I was intimately involved in that. What the Clinton administration did, with bilateral talks, is almost laughable. I saw a film clip the other day of Madeleine Albright walking down the hall with Kim Jong-il. I could almost read his mind saying, I can't believe how stupid these Americans are. He was duping us. We were giving him $1 billion. He was taking care of his military, starving his people, and making plutonium. So that's what happened. Now, I didn't start the blame game. Senator Clinton did. My answer is, yes, it's the six-party talks. And the reason it didn't work the first time is, quite frankly, as we're now coming to know, China wasn't really, and China's the big player there, we know that. Now China's on board. So we had to wait. But to go back to the same failed strategy of one-on-one talks with a dictator who we all know is a rogue dictator who has no problem. It didn't work with the Clinton administration. It caused the current problem, and we have to stick with. And we're making progress as of today. You saw that.
That's time. And since, Senator, that you did mention, quote, let's take nothing off the table, many people will want to read into that what you mean insofar as use of military force. At what point, in your estimation, if at all, should the use of military force and the use of U.S. troops be a possible resolution in this issue?
Well, let me first try to set the record straight. Out of the agreed framework that was entered into in 1994, there was no plutonium reprocessing. There are two ways to make a nuclear weapon: reprocessing plutonium and trying to come up with highly enriched uranium. By far the easier way is reprocessing plutonium. That did not happen. Now, when we found out in the early part of the Bush administration that there had been a secretive effort to try to come up with highly enriched uranium, it was absolutely appropriate to come down hard on the North Koreans. But what the Bush administration did was to basically pull out. They said, you breached the agreement, we're done with you. That then was like a big green light to the North Koreans. Let's start reprocessing plutonium. That's where the nuclear weapons came from. There were no nuclear weapons that the North Koreans produced during the 90s. We now see them testing underground.
And Senator, we're out of time, but if I could just ask you, does your statement, take nothing off the table, include the use of possible U.S. troops?
Absolutely it does, because we've got troops in South Korea for a reason. We've been in a low-level but consistent state of readiness against North Korea for many years. And I think you cannot take anything off the table. The only way we ever got the agreed framework in 1994 was by making it very clear to Kim Jong-il that military action was imminent.
Okay. Thank you both.
Mr. Spencer, is America ready for a woman president? And do you regret your television ad where you put a photo of Senator Clinton next to Osama bin Laden?
First of all, is America ready for a woman president? Absolutely. We live in a society. We have many outstanding women citizens. I don't think you have to come out of the Senate or governor, but absolutely, the United States is ready for a woman president. Do I regret the ad that I used to make a point? Does everyone know the story of the Brooklyn Bridge? That's what the ad was about the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, and how the NSA wiretapping of suspected al-Qaeda terrorists uncovered that and caught Hyman Ferris and called in Ray Kelly, you know, that Senator Clinton voted against. I would vote for. She constantly would mock the NSA wiretapping. So that's what that ad was about. You know, as far as putting up pictures of Osama bin Laden, I said, you know, I just see the Republican Party, you know, is following me for once. They're not supporting me, but they're following me for once. I'm talking about their national party. And they've got ads up today with quotes from Osama bin Laden. Yes, I think the American people should be fully aware of what Osama bin Laden obviously has done, continues to do, and what he promises to do. He promised to do it in 1998 after Mogadishu, after our soldiers were butchered and dragged through the streets. And the Clinton administration quickly said, let's get out of here. And they left. And Osama bin Laden said, quote, I told you they're weak. Let's go all the way, a la September 11th. So yes, we should put those up for the American people to understand we are at war. And I put that up to tell the story that happened. The Brooklyn Bridge would have been taken down. It was saved by a program, by the way, out in Lackawanna also, right out to the west of us. Same program caught those terrorists coming in. Senator Clinton opposed that program.
Senator Clinton, is America ready for a woman president?
Well, that will be up to America. But
what do you think,
Dominic,
Senator?
I have
Senator,
to.
What's your opinion?
It depends. I'm not going to speculate on that. I want to respond to a number of the points that were just made. So many attacks, so little time. It's hard to know where to start. But let me start by saying that I have always advocated giving any president the tools to fight and defeat terrorists, and I continue to do so. I have supported electronic surveillance and wiretapping. What I have called for is to have the president come to the Congress so that we could authorize it legally. There has not been a vote on it because the president has refused to really work with the bipartisan majority on the Intelligence Committee and in the Senate to figure out what authority is needed and how best to devise a system that will keep us safe. I hope that we'll get to that after this election because it is one of the very important tools. I think it can be done under the rule of law, and I think it can be done effectively. With respect to the Republicans using Osama bin Laden and other terrorists as part of their political scare tactics, I find it very disappointing. You know, the fact is Osama bin Laden is still at large. We don't know where he is. We've had troops there now for more than 5 years, and it's a little bit hard to understand why you can't find, you know, the tallest man in Afghanistan, but we haven't. And as a result, he can taunt us, he can send out all kinds of challenges to us, and I hope that we will be able to take down al-Qaeda because it is resurging in Afghanistan, which is causing a lot of difficulty for our NATO troops there.
Senator Clinton, a quick follow-up. A few minutes ago, I'm coming to you, Mr. Spencer. A few minutes ago, you said that you have thought about running for president. Can you elaborate on what you mean? And in your heart, do you think that you would make a better president than the current occupant of the White House, President Bush?
Won't give up. He won't give up.
You know, as I've said over and over again, when people talk to me about it, it's hard not to at least let it cross my mind because I have to say, well, thank you very much. I'm running for the Senate, and I would like your vote on November 7th. I've made no decisions. I'm not, it was a good try, Dominic. I'm not going that way.
Would you make a better president, Senator Clinton? Senator, would you make a better president than President Bush?
You know, we have one president at a time, one commander-in-chief at a time. One of my, I guess, different perspectives than my opponent is, I think as a United States Senator, I have a duty and an obligation to criticize where appropriate. That's the way the Constitution is supposed to work. One of my biggest disappointments with the Republican majority is that they have abdicated the responsibility for oversight and accountability. I don't think that's been good for our government, for our Constitution. I don't think it's been good for the Bush administration because basically they have not been held accountable. We might have gotten better decisions earlier if they had been.
Thank you, Senator Clinton. Mr. Spencer?
Well, just going backwards on that, Dominic. First of all, Senator Clinton mentioned earlier that the president is, making changes because of Republicans.